Across the vast silent darkness of the cosmos, the universe hides questions far older than time itself. Entire star systems flicker out as if consumed by an invisible hand. Distant nebulae shift in ways no law of physics can explain. And deep within the cold void, something stirs, ancient patient watching. Every signal we detect carries traces of patterns that should not exist, as if written by an intelligence beyond our understanding. Tonight we step into that darkness, following the faintest clues left in drifting starlight, searching for answers that may forever change what we believe about the universe. 4 billion years ago, Mars was not the crimson wasteland we know today. It was a shimmering blue world, warm, wet, and alive, with endless storms, rivers, and an ocean so vast it swallowed nearly the entire northern hemisphere. Imagine standing on ancient Mars and seeing waves deeper than Earth's Arctic Ocean, crashing beneath a thick protective atmosphere. This wasn't the dead planet we see through telescopes. It was a second Earth, hiding in plain sight, a forgotten ocean world that once glowed under a gentler sun. But the tragedy is this, that ocean vanished completely. Billions upon billions of tons of water, once enough to blanket half the planet, are now reduced to faint chemical traces in the rocks. This leads to one of the most haunting questions in modern planetary science. Where did Mars' ocean go? What do you think really happened to Mars' ancient ocean? Share your thoughts in the comments below. For decades, the most widely accepted explanation for the disappearance of Mars' ancient ocean was that the water gradually escaped into space. As the planet's core cooled and its global magnetic field weakened, Mars became exposed to the relentless solar wind. Its atmosphere was stripped away, layer by layer. Water vapor in the air was broken apart, and light molecules like hydrogen were easily swept into space. This model sounded reasonable because it fit the picture of a slowly dying planet. But isotope measurements have revealed an uncomfortable truth: the amount of water that escaped into space accounts for only a tiny fraction of the total. Nowhere near enough to erase an entire ocean once deeper than Earth's Arctic. This makes the escaped into space hypothesis no longer a complete answer. This left scientists puzzled for many years. If the water didn't leave the planet, and Mars today is far too dry to hold it on the surface, then where could such an enormous volume of water be hiding? Then came a new hypothesis, bold, dramatic, and increasingly supported by data. One that feels almost like science fiction: Mars drank its own ocean. Recent studies show that Mars' crust is not just a layer of dry, rigid rock, but a complex mineral system with a surprisingly strong ability to absorb water. Most of the planet's crust is made of basalt rock, formed as molten lava cools. Within the crystal structure of basalt are microscopic gaps where water can be trapped through chemical bonding. As the ancient Martian ocean receded and seeped deeper into the ground, the water reacted with the basalt, transforming it into hydrated minerals such as smectite and serpentine. The key difference is that Earth's plate tectonics constantly recycle the crust, releasing trapped water back to the surface. Mars, however, is geologically frozen. Its crust does not shift, melt, or renew itself. As a result, the water absorbed into the Martian crust remains locked away in darkness for billions of years, with virtually no chance of ever returning to the surface. This leads to a chilling conclusion. The Martian ocean didn't vanish. It is imprisoned beneath the surface. A massive amount of water may still exist in permanent darkness, bound to minerals deep in the crust. If Mars's ancient ocean was truly pulled into the planet's crust, an even more unsettling question immediately arises: if primitive life ever existed, there was it dragged down with the water and buried beneath the Martian surface. In the deep layers where sunlight cannot reach, where free oxygen is absent and everything seems silent, a very particular type of environment still exists, water locked inside minerals, chemical reactions, releasing energy, and microscopic pockets within the rock conditions strikingly similar to the hidden ecosystems beneath Earth's ocean floor. On our planet, scientists have discovered microorganisms that survived for millions of years in total darkness, relying solely on energy from mineral reactions. Therefore, it is entirely possible that Martian microbes, if they ever existed, could have adapted and endured within a similar environment. This possibility makes the search for life both thrilling and haunting. Perhaps life on Mars never truly disappeared. It may simply be imprisoned within the rock waiting for us to uncover it. If Mars' ancient ocean was truly absorbed into its crust, then current rovers like Curiosity and Perseverance are only scratching the surface of the real mystery. The true answers lie much deeper within layers of rock that humanity has never reached. This is why future missions must focus on deep drilling and targeting regions that once experienced hydrothermal activity, places where the crust may reveal hydrated minerals. These rare geological windows could be the key to finally uncovering the vast reserves of water that have been trapped beneath Mars for billions of years. In the end, the story of Mars' lost ocean is not just planetary science, it is a reminder of how fragile worlds can be. A planet that was once blue, warm and alive with water, can become a frozen desert simply by losing its magnetic shield and atmosphere. And as we look at Mars today, dry, cold and desolate, we must remember that beneath the red dust may still lie the memory of a world of oceans. A world Mars buried within itself. If you look at Europa from afar, this moon appears like a smooth white frozen sphere, cold, silent, and lifeless. But beneath that seemingly dead shell lies one of the greatest mysteries of the solar system. A massive saltwater ocean, so vast that it contains more water than all of Earth's oceans combined. The irony is striking. This water-rich world sits incredibly far from the sun, where light and warmth barely reach. So what prevents this ocean from freezing solid? And is there something living beneath that ice? What do you think? Could something be living beneath that 20-kilometer layer of ice? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Europa's surface is covered by an ice layer estimated to be about 20 kilometers thick. This frozen crust is constantly cracking, shifting, and rearranging into strange spiderweb patterns, scars engraved by the enormous tidal forces from Jupiter. Beneath this icy armor, scientists believe there is a liquid ocean extending nearly 100 kilometers deep. Although no one has directly seen it, multiple lines of evidence suggest the ocean is active, moving, colliding, and even pushing water upward in the form of towering plumes similar to hydrothermal vents. Europa doesn't just have water, it has salty, mineral-rich water. This makes it one of the strongest candidates for microbial-style life comparable to the environments around Earth's deep-sea hydrothermal vents. So what keeps a massive ocean from freezing in such a frigid region? The answer is tidal heating. Europa orbits Jupiter, the largest planet in the solar system. Jupiter's immense gravity stretches and compresses Europa over and over. The moon's rocky interior and icy shell flex like a giant spring, generating friction and heat. This process is called tidal heating, and it also occurs on Saturn's moon, Enceladus. Thanks to this mechanism, Europa's interior stays warm enough for the ocean to remain liquid. On Earth, sunlight fuels life. But on Europa, the primary sources are geothermal heat and tidal forces. This leads us to a profound question. If life doesn't need sunlight, could it exist in far more places than we ever imagined? To determine whether anything might be swimming beneath Europa's frozen shell, scientists rely on a simple but powerful biological principle, life needs liquid water, a source of energy and chemical nutrients. Europa almost certainly has liquid water sustained by the constant tidal heating from Jupiter and possibly enriched by hydrothermal vents at the ocean floor. It also possesses the necessary chemistry as its irradiated surface produces free oxygen that may seep downward through cracks and mix into the ocean below. On Earth, entire ecosystems thrive near deep-sea hydrothermal vents without sunlight, relying solely on heat and chemical reactions. If similar environments exist beneath Europa's immense icy crust, microbial life, or even primitive ecosystems could very well be present. This possibility has the potential to redefine humanity's understanding of life's place in the universe. All information so far comes from surface scans, magnetic field data, and spacecraft measurements. No human and no robot has ever seen Europa's ocean with their own eyes. To get closer, humanity must take the first step, approach Europa's surface, and analyze whatever the ocean throws upward. NASA is now preparing to take that monumental step. In the near future, NASA will launch the Europa Clipper mission, one of the most significant efforts in the history of searching for life beyond Earth. The spacecraft will not land on Europa's surface, but will instead perform dozens of close flybys to capture detailed images of its icy shell, scan the structure and thickness of the ice, analyze organic molecules, search for signs of water plumes, and determine the salinity and depth of the underground ocean. If Europa does indeed eject water into space, as observations suggest, the Clipper may fly directly through these plumes to collect samples straight from the ocean, a bold yet remarkably effective method. And if those samples contain any biological signatures, from organic molecules to complex cellular structures or anything unusual at all, Europa could become the first extraterrestrial world where humanity confirms the existence of life. It could be ancient microbes. It could be entirely unique organisms adapted to cold darkness and crushing pressure creatures that rely not on sunlight but on chemical energy from the deep. No one knows what Europa is hiding, but even the smallest sign of life would permanently change humanity's perspective on its place in the cosmos. We would no longer ask, does life exist elsewhere? We would begin asking the far greater question, how common is life in the universe? Europa might hold the answer. When Yuri Gagarin smiled and stepped out of the Vostok 1 capsule in 1961, the whole world erupted in celebration. Humanity had officially conquered outer space, but few people knew that beneath that shining moment was a dark secret the Soviet Union never wanted anyone to uncover. A chilling question has been whispered for decades among historians of spaceflight. Was Gagarin truly the first human to leave Earth, or simply the first who survived long enough to tell the story? And to understand why this question exists, we must go back to Italy in the late 1960s, where two young brothers, poor, obsessed with radio, and endlessly curious, Achille and Gian Giudica Cordiglia, accidentally stumbled onto one of the Cold War's most terrifying mysteries. Do you think Gagarin was truly the first human in space, or just the first one who survived to come back? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Giudica Cordiglia family home in Turin was unremarkable except for its cramped basement filled with wires, signal receivers, homemade antennas, and piles of magnetic tapes. Achille and Gian, barely in their 20s, were not military experts, not scientists, and certainly not spies. They were simply radio amateurs, driven by a curiosity stronger than any technical limitation. When the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, the brothers became obsessed. They built enormous antennas from scrap metal, pointed them at the sky, and just listened. But the more they listened, the more they heard things they could not explain, strange signals coming from objects never mentioned in any official Soviet announcement. And one day, those signals changed into something unmistakable, a human heartbeat. something that should never have been drifting through the icy silence of Earth's orbit. According to their recordings from the late 1950s to the early 1960s, the brothers intercepted a series of mysterious signals that they believed came from failed Soviet-manned missions. Rapid, panicked heartbeat patterns, labored breathing, heart rates slowing as though oxygen were running out, and fragmented Russian transmissions between ground control and someone who sounded increasingly desperate. None of these flights were ever officially announced. There were no newspapers reporting them, no ceremonies, no astronaut names, and no bodies returned home. All that remained were faint signals drifting through the darkness, captured by two young Italians who had no idea what kind of secret they were brushing against. Yet even that was not the most horrifying part. On February 2nd, 1961, just weeks before Gagarin's historic flight, the brothers recorded a transmission that many researchers still consider the most disturbing audio in the history of space exploration. The signal was weak, but unmistakably the voice of a woman speaking Russian. Her voice trembled with terror, breathing heavily between bursts of static and alarm tones. Then she said desperately, "It's too hot, I see fire. Should I re-enter? Everything is burning." Then came several agonizing seconds of silence, followed by faint pops, then the tortured screech of overheated metal. And finally, the signal died forever. No spacecraft wreckage, no official report, no astronaut name. Only a voice swallowed by the void, as if she had never existed. The Soviet Union has always insisted that no woman flew into space before Tereshkova in 1963. But the recording exists, and it raises a terrifying possibility. Cold War archives show that the Soviet Union was under immense pressure to beat the United States in the space race. A failed mission could humiliate the nation. A corpse drifting in orbit could shatter the image of a space superpower. So if there were failed flights, would the Soviets have any reason to admit them? Or would they erase every trace, stay silent, and present Gagarin as the one true hero, the only one who returned alive after a series of clandestine attempts? We may never know the truth, but the radio signals from Turin remain a chilling reminder. Space has no graveyards, no gravestones, no records, no funerals. If a spacecraft fails and never returns, it will drift forever in darkness, colder than ice, silent as the void itself. And the final question, more frightening than any conspiracy, is how many nameless cosmonauts are still quietly orbiting Earth inside dead metal tombs, wiped from history's pages. Maybe Gagarin really was the first human to leave Earth. Or maybe he was simply the first to return with a smile. Between truth and secrecy lies a shadowy realm where only one thing is certain: space never speaks, and sometimes that silence is what terrifies us most. When we think of planets heavier than Earth, most of us imagine a solid, tightly compressed world, perhaps a miniature version of Jupiter. Yet out there in the cosmos exist planets that completely defy our expectations, massive in size, heavy in mass, but overall lighter than a block of foam. Scientists call them by an amusing name, super puffy planets. The term may sound like a joke, but these worlds are completely real. They have diameters many times larger than Jupiter, yet densities only a few % that of water, and in some cases, just 1/3 the density of foam. Imagine placing one of them on a scale. It would feel like you're lifting an enormous hollow balloon filled with almost nothing but gas. If you discovered a planet larger than Jupiter, but lighter than foam, what would you call it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your ideas. Their extreme lightness comes from hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe. But it's not just that they contain hydrogen. They contain an enormous amount of it, enough to wrap the planet in a massive expanded atmosphere thousands of kilometers thick. A planet with a small rocky core but a gigantic envelope of hydrogen becomes huge in size without accumulating enough solid matter to create high density. Hydrogen, being the lightest element, means that even an atmosphere hundreds or thousands of times thicker than Earth's barely adds any significant mass. Things get even stranger because these planets usually orbit very close to their host stars. The distance is so small that surface temperatures can reach over 1,000 degrees Celsius, causing the hydrogen to expand dramatically and inflate the atmosphere like a superheated balloon. The result: enormous size, unchanged mass, extremely low density. One of the most well-known super puffy planets is HAT P67b. It's nearly the size of Jupiter, yet its density is only about 1/10 that of foam. If you could drop a piece of the planet into a gigantic container of water, it would float. Hard to believe, but fully supported by measurements. HAT P67b orbits its star at an extremely close distance, taking only a few days to complete one orbit. The intense heat causes the hydrogen to expand so much that 90% of the planet's volume is just thin gas. A super-light planet typically has a very unusual structure. At its center lies a small rocky core, which may be only about the size of Earth or slightly larger. Surrounding this core is a massive hydrogen-helium envelope that occupies almost the entire planetary radius. On the outside is a layer of gas that has been intensely heated and expanded, swelling so dramatically that it scatters light, heavily making long-distance observations extremely difficult. To visualize it, Earth is like a solid rock, while a super puffy planet resembles a heated balloon, a thin outer shell, a hollow interior, and a structure easily stripped by stellar winds, yet still held together by a delicate balance of temperature, pressure, and gravity. Scientists once believed that the atmospheres of super puffy planets would be stripped away quickly by stellar winds. But the reality is the complete opposite. These planets remain remarkably stable for millions of years. The reason is that although their gravitational pull is much weaker than that of the familiar giant gas planets, it is still strong enough to retain most of their hydrogen. At the same time, the balance between extreme heat and gravity creates a naturally stable state for the surrounding gas layer, preventing it from dispersing entirely into space. In addition, deeper layers of gas continuously replenish the hydrogen lost to stellar winds, causing the planet to behave like a gigantic balloon that is constantly being inflated from within, and therefore never collapses the way scientists once imagined. These planets are heavier than Earth, but their level of lightness is truly beyond imagination. Picture a world with 5 times Earth's mass, yet a size 13 to 15 times larger, while its density is only 1/10 that of water. When that mass is spread across such an enormous volume, you reach the lowest threshold a planet can have before its structure collapses. And if a human could step onto the surface of such a planet, assuming a real surface even exists, they would almost certainly sink straight into the thin, expanded gases, as if trying to stand on a giant boiling cloud churning from within. Before the discovery of super puffy planets, scientists believed that giant gas planets all followed a common structural model: a large core, thick gaseous layers, and similar densities. But the emergence of this strange group completely shattered that assumption, revealing that a planet's structure does not need to conform to any fixed standards. Temperature and proximity to a host star can distort a world into something utterly bizarre, and giant gas planets are not merely scaled copies of Jupiter or Saturn. This diversity opens up the possibility that the universe contains countless types of planets we have never imagined, from hot ice worlds and diamond planets to endless ocean worlds and enormous hydrogen balloons like the super puffy class. Planets heavier than Earth, yet lighter than foam, are among the most astonishing examples of the universe's richness. They challenge long-held assumptions in physics, forcing scientists to revise our understanding of how planets form and evolve. In a cosmos where every rule has exceptions, these super puffy planets remind us we've seen only the tip of the iceberg in the vast collection of bizarre worlds beyond our solar system. For more than 50 years, a subtle atmospheric clue on Mars has quietly unsettled astrophysicists. The planet contains an unusually high concentration of xenon-129, a radioactive fingerprint that under natural conditions should never appear in such abundance. NASA's Viking mission first detected this anomaly in 1976, and every probe that followed has confirmed it with increasing precision, revealing that the ratio of xenon-129 far exceeds anything found on Earth. What makes this discovery troubling is that on Earth, xenon-129 only appears in environments associated with extremely intense nuclear processes, such as the decay of iodine-129 inside reactors, the aftermath of thermonuclear explosions, or regions bombarded by high-flux neutron radiation. Yet Mars is a cold, barren, geologically quiet world with a thin atmosphere and no known natural mechanism capable of producing such a strong nuclear signature on a planetary scale. The presence of this isotope forces scientists to confront an uncomfortable question: what ancient event in Mars' distant past could have generated such a large amount of xenon-129? And why does its atmospheric profile resemble scenarios that on Earth only occur after nuclear reactions of extraordinary energy? What do you think truly caused the unusual amount of xenon-129 on Mars? A natural process or something not so natural? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Xenon is an inert gas, and this very property makes it a perfect marker of planetary history. Once it escapes into the atmosphere, it hardly reacts with anything and can remain stable for billions of years. Among all xenon isotopes, xenon-129 stands out because its origin is exceptionally clear. It is produced primarily through the radioactive decay of iodine-129, an isotope with a half-life of only about 15.7 million years, long enough to exist during the early stages of the solar system, yet too short to still be abundant today. This is why the real mystery is not how xenon-129 is formed, but why Mars possesses such an unusually high ratio of this isotope, far exceeding every standard model of atmospheric evolution. It is like discovering a fingerprint in a place where you are certain no one should have touched. NASA offers the classical explanation: the solar wind stripped away most of Mars' atmosphere, allowing lighter isotopes to escape first, while heavier ones like xenon-129 remained, creating the imbalance we observe today. However, when compared with actual data from the Viking landers, this model does not fit perfectly. Several other xenon isotopes fail to align with the isotope filtering hypothesis caused by solar wind. This mismatch exposes a gap in the current explanation, and that very gap has paved the way for bolder theories suggesting that an extremely energetic event may once have occurred, powerful enough to alter the radioactive structure of the entire Martian atmosphere. Plasma physicist John Brandenburg, a researcher who previously worked on plasma dynamics for US defense projects, put forward one of the most controversial hypotheses ever associated with Mars: that the planet's radioactive signatures resemble the aftermath of a colossal nuclear explosion. His claim wasn't rooted in fantasy, but in a series of observations that troubled him the more he studied them. He examined the unusually high concentration of xenon-129 in the Martian atmosphere, the strange distribution of thorium and uranium detected by the Mars Odyssey spacecraft, and the absence of certain isotopes that should have been present if these elements had originated from ordinary geological decay. From this combination of anomalies, Brandenburg asked a question that many scientists considered almost unthinkable. Could Mars have once hosted a civilization that was eradicated by a nuclear-scale event? His interpretation suggests that the red planet might once have had oceans, rivers, and a thick, life-supporting atmosphere, perhaps even intelligent beings, before experiencing a catastrophic high-energy blast capable of altering its entire atmospheric profile. Such an idea sharply divided the scientific community. Critics dismissed it as speculative fiction, masquerading as science, arguing that natural explanations should be exhausted first. But supporters countered that NASA's current atmospheric models still fail to fully explain the radioactive irregularities found on Mars, and as long as those gaps remain, the unsettling possibility of an ancient anomalous energy event cannot be completely ruled out. NASA maintains a cautious and consistent stance when explaining the anomaly of Xenon 129 on Mars. According to the agency, billions of years of solar wind erosion gradually stripped the Martian atmosphere, allowing lighter isotopes to escape first, while heavier ones, like Xenon 129, remained in higher proportions. However, 2 points prevent the scientific community from fully accepting this explanation. First, the ratio of Xenon 129 on Mars is strikingly similar to the atmospheric signatures recorded on Earth after nuclear weapons tests, a coincidence that is difficult to overlook. Second, the distribution maps of uranium and thorium collected by the Mars Odyssey spacecraft reveal unusual clustering patterns, as if parts of the planet's surface had been swept by an extremely powerful energy source. This phenomenon does not align perfectly with any known natural geological processes. NASA does not support the idea of an ancient nuclear explosion, yet it has not provided a model capable of fully accounting for all observed data. And whenever science lacks a definitive answer, such unanswered questions only fuel humanity's curiosity even more intensely. When we look at Mars as if we were archaeologists on a cosmic scale, we encounter signs that make the planet resemble a crime scene. Rather than a lifeless world, unusual radioactive signals, the complete disappearance of what was once a thick atmosphere, ancient riverbeds, now dry and barren, and radiation maps that appear as though parts of the surface were scorched by an enormous burst of energy. Even if one does not believe in the idea of a vanished civilization, it is difficult to ignore the fact that Mars carries a mark found on no other planet in the solar system. And the great question remains silent and cold, like the planet's rust-red surface. Did Mars once suffer a catastrophe on a nuclear scale, or are these clues merely the result of natural processes that humanity has yet to fully understand? Valles Marineris is not just a canyon. It is the largest planetary cut humanity has ever witnessed, a slash nearly 4,000 kilometers long, 5 times deeper than the Grand Canyon, and wide enough to swallow entire Earth-sized cities. It looks as if some colossal force had taken a cosmic blade and carved straight across the surface of Mars, leaving behind a wound no ordinary geological process can explain. No rivers, no tectonic plates, no volcanic activity has ever possessed the power to create such a terrifying scar. Standing before Valles Marineris, humanity is left with one chilling question. What truly tore Mars apart? What do you think created this colossal scar on Mars? Share your theory in the comments below. On Earth, every colossal canyon can be traced back to a clear culprit, either a relentless river carving through the landscape for millions of years, or tectonic plates pulling apart to form vast valleys. But on Mars, both of these familiar signatures are almost completely absent. No ancient river was ever large or persistent enough to gouge the planet's crust to such an extreme. And Mars lacks an active tectonic system like Earth's. There are no massive collisions, lateral slips, or plate separations spanning hundreds of kilometers. Yet Valles Marineris still exists, towering in silence, as if some force beyond all known geological models had suddenly torn open the planet's surface in a moment beyond imagination. Some scientists believe that Valles Marineris formed when the Tharsis region swelled upward, generating immense pressure that stretched and fractured the Martian crust. On a basic level, this theory sounds reasonable, When a planet's crust is pulled beyond its limit, it will break. But upon closer inspection, contradictions begin to appear. Ordinary fractures typically create straight fault lines or web-like crack patterns. In contrast, Valles Marineris displays overlapping geological layers, sheer cliff faces that look almost scorched, and massive circular pits aligned in long chains. Marks that resemble the aftermath of an extraordinarily powerful force sweeping across the surface, burning and tearing everything along its path. This is where the dramatic perspective emerges, the cosmic lightning hypothesis from the electric universe theory. Although highly controversial, it captivates many because it dares to address what traditional geology still struggles to explain. According to this idea, millions of years ago, the orbits of planets in the solar system were not as stable as they are today. At certain times, they may have passed close enough to generate immense electromagnetic interactions. When two celestial bodies carrying different electric charges interact within the plasma-rich environment of space, a cosmic discharge stretching thousands of kilometers and hotter than the surface of a star could erupt. Such an arc would be powerful enough to vaporize rock blast, away planetary crust, and carve deep channels that look as if they were sliced by a laser. For supporters of this theory, a single colossal electrical strike could have been all it took to etch the terrifying scar we now call Valles Marineris onto the face of Mars. Supporters of this hypothesis point out that many plasma scarring patterns in laboratory arc discharge experiments look identical to the subsidiary canyons within Valles Marineris vertical walls, parallel grooves, and swirling formations produced by plasma dynamics. Even several massive circular pits at the canyon floor resemble pit crater chains, formed by high-voltage discharges rather than impact craters or typical collapse structures. If this were true, then in the distant past, Mars might have endured an electromagnetic strike of unprecedented energy, an event not geological but astronomical, a planetary scar etched by cosmic thunder rather than water or stone. Viewed through this lens, Valles Marineris ceases to be a canyon and becomes evidence of a chaotic era in the solar system, a time when young planets collided electrically like remnants of some celestial war. Although the more dramatic hypotheses attract public attention, mainstream science still prioritizes geological explanations. According to this view, Mars once possessed a massive fault system, formed as its crust cooled, rapidly stretched by gravitational forces and further stressed by the immense uplift of the Tharsis region. Smaller fractures merged into larger rifts, which were gradually widened by wind erosion, landslides, and traces of ancient water flow. However, several major questions remain unresolved. If this is simply a normal fault system, why does no other location on Mars exhibit a similar structure? Why did all the planetary tension concentrate into a single fracture stretching thousands of kilometers? And why do erosional features account for only a small portion of such a colossal formation? These contradictions leave the geological explanation plausible, yet far from fully convincing. These contradictions make Valles Marineris the most compelling case file on Mars. Each layer of rock is like a chapter of history, yet unreadable in full. The more we study it, the more we realize we are facing a mystery unlike anything else in the solar system. Not a river trace, not a tectonic rift, not an impact site. Something created that massive gash, something we still cannot confidently define. Whether it was cosmic electrical discharge, crustal collapse, or a geological process never before observed, Valles Marineris stands as a reminder that Mars is not a silent red world. It was once a battleground of forces beyond our current imagination. And that scar towering over the landscape for billions of years still waits for humanity to decode its origin. Imagine something completely opposite to everything you know about the night sky. You step outside, lift your head, expecting the familiar beauty of thousands of stars. But instead of light, you see only an absolute darkness. No rays, no stars, no distant galaxies. Just a deep, pitch-black void, silent, unsettling, as if someone has draped a massive funeral shroud over the universe itself. That feeling isn't just strange, it's chilling. And what's even more terrifying, that darkness is not imaginary. It truly exists out there on a scale so vast, it breaks every rule of modern cosmology. This is the Bootes Void, the most mysterious, most unnatural, and most inexplicable emptiness humanity has ever discovered. A colossal silence of the cosmos, so enormous that even light seems to have been erased from the map. Do you think the Bootes Void is a natural cosmic phenomenon? Or could something far more advanced be hiding behind that darkness? Tell me what you think in the comments below. In modern cosmology, galaxies are not scattered like grains of sand, but are linked together in long filaments, known as the cosmic web. Between these luminous threads lie small voids naturally formed from early fluctuations in matter density. Yet no matter how empty they are, they still fit within the limits of physical explanation. Bootes Void, however, goes far beyond those limits, a region so vast it seems to break every rule of galactic distribution, forcing scientists to question what they truly understand about the universe. The Bootes Void is an enormous spherical region of space, stretching some 330 million light-years, far larger than any typical cosmic void. If the entire Milky Way were placed inside it, our galaxy would be so tiny it would almost disappear. Based on the universe's average galactic density, this region should contain roughly 10,000 galaxies. Yet when our most powerful telescopes look into it, we find only 60, an astonishing deficit that fits none of our current cosmological models. If the stars there formed normally as they do everywhere else, then what or who made them disappear? This is where a chilling hypothesis emerges: the possible intervention of a civilization classified as Type 3 on the Kardashev scale. To grasp how terrifying this idea truly is, imagine the evolutionary journey of energy mastery. A Type 1 civilization harnesses all the energy of its planet. Type 2 goes further, enclosing an entire star within megastructures like Dyson spheres to capture every photon it emits. But Type 3 surpasses imagination itself, beings capable of commanding the energy of an entire galaxy, operating on a scale far beyond anything humanity has ever conceived. For humanity, a species still struggling to set foot on Mars, a Type 3 civilization would appear almost godlike. And if such beings truly exist, the clearest trace they would leave behind is vanished starlight. When a Dyson sphere encloses a star, its light is perfectly trapped, unable to escape. From our perspective, that star isn't dead or exploded, it simply disappears from the sky as if someone deliberately hid it from view. And if a Type 3 civilization were expanding through their galaxy, they would continuously harvest stars by enclosing them. This means their region of space would grow darker, darker still, until it becomes a vast black hole of missing light. Could the Bootes Void be their cosmic footprint? Even more unsettling than the abnormal emptiness of the Bootes Void is the fact that its boundary appears not to be static. As cosmologists examined it more closely, they detected signs that this dark region is slowly expanding, so gradually it's almost imperceptible, yet enough to raise a chilling question. If this is the trace of an advancing civilization, then in which direction are they spreading? And could that expansion be moving toward our place in the universe? Imagine a three-dimensional map of the universe, where colossal luminous filaments of superclusters weave together like a cosmic web. In the midst of this vibrant structure appears a massive puncture of pure darkness, so black it reflects no light, holds no dust, and shows no remnants of dead stars. Its surface is unnervingly smooth almost, unnatural. It looks as if this region of space has been deliberately wiped clean, erasing every trace of light. Some scientists offer a safer explanation that the Bootes void formed from early universe fluctuations in dark matter density. But this theory has a fatal flaw. Bootes is far emptier than any model allows by orders of magnitude. No existing cosmological framework fully explains why such a void should exist. And so theoretical physicists keep asking, if this truly is the work of a Type 3 civilization, when did they begin? And do they know we're watching? Everything remains theoretical, yet the undeniable fact stands cold and unmoving. The Bootes void is one of the strangest, most abnormal, and least explainable structures in the observable universe. And the biggest mystery isn't how it formed, but why it continues to grow. If one day the light from nearby galaxies starts to dim, if new dark regions appear on our cosmic maps, then the question who turned off the stars may no longer be a metaphor. Maybe someone really is out there, and they don't want to share the light. Ever since we were little kids sitting in kindergarten, the yellow crayon was practically the default tool for drawing the sun. In storybooks, cartoons, paintings, and weather icons, the sun is always a bright yellow circle, almost as if humanity silently agreed on this depiction from childhood. Over decades, this idea becomes an obvious truth. The sun must be yellow because that is the image embedded deep within our memory. But the surprising part is that obvious truth is entirely false. If you leave Earth's atmosphere, travel into space, aboard a spacecraft, step beyond every layer of air that distorts light, and look directly at our parent star, warning. Never do this. In reality, your retina would burn in a fraction of a millisecond. You would witness something that makes all childhood drawings suddenly wrong. The sun is not yellow. It is a pure, striking white sphere, cold, intense, and bright, as if forged from blinding electrical light. Did you always think the sun was yellow or white? And how surprising is this truth to you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When we wonder why the sun appears yellow to us, we must start with the barrier that always stands between us and our parent star. Earth's atmosphere. When sunlight enters this layer of air, it is no longer preserved in its original form. Molecules of nitrogen, oxygen, water vapor, and countless tiny dust particles immediately interfere with the beam of light, causing it to bend, scatter, and separate. Since white light is actually a combination of all colors, in the spectrum from violet, blue, and green to yellow and red, each color reacts differently when it collides with atmospheric particles. Short wavelength colors, like violet and blue, scatter, the strongest getting flung in all directions until they fill the entire sky, creating the familiar blue we see during the day. Meanwhile, longer wavelengths, such as yellow and red, scatter far less, continuing forward and reaching our eyes more directly. Because these are the colors that remain after the atmosphere filters the light, we mistakenly believe the sun itself is yellow. In truth, it is only the version of the sun that Earth allows us to see, a planet-scale illusion created by the very layer of air that shelters life on our world. A similar phenomenon explains why the sun turns a deep red during sunrise and sunset. When sunlight travels at a slanted angle through a much thicker layer of atmosphere, then during midday, the scattering effect increases dramatically. At that point, not only are blue and violet wavelengths almost completely scattered away, but even yellow and orange light becomes bent and weakened. What remains is red light, the longest and most persistent wavelength, continuing straight into our eyes. That is why Earth's sunsets look astonishingly beautiful, yet this beauty does not come from the sun changing its color. It is the atmosphere itself that repaints the entire scene. When you step into outer space, where there is no air, no dust, and no molecules capable of distorting light, the sun reveals its true appearance, a blindingly radiant white sphere. No yellow tint, no orange glow, only a pure, intense white that feels as if it pierces straight into your eyes. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station all describe the same sight. Sunlight in space is so bright that it appears pure white, completely different from the colors we see from Earth's surface. This aligns perfectly with the physical properties of a G2 V-type star. Spectral analysis shows that the sun emits energy quite evenly across the visible spectrum, producing true white light, similar to the burst of an extremely powerful camera flash, a kind of light far beyond anything human technology has ever created. We keep drawing the sun as yellow because our brains absorbed that image as a fixed pattern from early childhood. None of us ever gets the chance to see the sun from outer space, so our memory repeats only one piece of information. The sun is yellow. From illustrations, textbooks, and weather icons to written representations of the sun, every image reinforces that pattern day after day. Yet the true color of the sun lies in a place most humans will never see: outer space, where it shines with a pure, intense white. The soft golden glow you feel every morning is not the sun's inherent color. It is the product of Earth's atmospheric filter. The atmosphere acts like a natural permanent photographic filter, transforming white light into a warm, gentle palette suitable for life. Without this filter, sunlight would appear harsh, cold, and violently white, just as it does on the moon, where there is almost no atmosphere. Shadows there are razor sharp, and the light is nearly uncomfortable to look at. Earth makes sunlight beautiful. The warm yellow sunlight you see every morning does not come from the sun, it comes from Earth. In other words, our atmosphere is the most powerful filter in the universe, while the true nature of the sun is a stark, unforgiving white star. Our childhood drawings aren't wrong. They're merely the version of the sun that Earth allows us to see. But if you remove the filter, strip away every layer of scattering and distortion, the sun reveals itself exactly as it is, a white star blazing and brilliant beyond any color you can fully describe. Imagine a world where the ground beneath your feet is not made of soil or rock, but of solid diamond, stretching endlessly in every direction. Not a myth, not a legend, not the dream of a geologist. This is the reality of an exoplanet outside our solar system known as 55 Cancri E. A small world, yet one whose material value is so incomprehensibly great that the entire global economy, with all nations combined, becomes insignificant in comparison. What makes it extraordinary is this: its diameter is roughly twice that of Earth, yet its mass is 8 times greater. These figures reveal a staggering truth. The material composing 55 Cancri E must be far denser than the silicate rocks of Earth. And this is the key to its greatest secret. It is a carbon planet where diamond may constitute up to 1/3 of its entire volume. If humanity could reach 55 Cancri E, what should we prioritize first? Mining its diamonds or conducting scientific research? Share your thoughts in the comments below. While Earth is built from silicate rocks, iron, nickel, and oxidized minerals, 55 Cancri E formed in an environment so rich in carbon that it seems almost non-physical by our familiar standards. Plasmic carbon in an ionized state combined with heavy elements to create a planet whose core, mantle, and crust all possess the characteristics of ultra-compressed carbon. Under extreme pressures, carbon doesn't just become diamond, it becomes solid diamond, extending from the mantle up into the upper crust. No planet in our solar system resembles it. Even rocky worlds like Earth, Mars, or Mercury cannot compare in terms of carbon density. Imagine the surface of 55 Cancri, not volcanic flows of silica, but lakes of molten carbon. vast slabs of glittering diamond, and a crust so dense that incoming light reflects in strange, distorted patterns. Astronomers estimate that about 1/3 of 55 Cancri E's total mass is diamond, and if this is accurate, then it would be the largest diamond mass humanity has ever known throughout its entire history. On Earth, a diamond weighing only a few dozen carats is already considered a treasure, but on that planet, the amount of diamond is measured in billions upon billions upon billions of carats, a scale so immense that it surpasses every economic concept humans have ever created. These are no longer gemstones meant for jewelry. This is a planet-sized reservoir of diamond, enough to collapse all existing economic models. Even if humanity could somehow extract and transport just a 1/1,000,000th of 1% of that diamond back to Earth, the global diamond market would instantly crash, dragging a cascade of interconnected financial systems into chaos. Based on density models, chemical composition, and theories of carbon-rich planet formation, 55 Cancri may contain diamond worth thousands of times more than Earth's entire annual GDP. Earth's global GDP currently stands at several tens of trillions of dollars each year. But 55 Cancri, its value is not measured in trillions anymore. It lies somewhere around 10 to the 30th to 10 to the 32nd dollars, a figure beyond the limits of human comprehension. This makes 55 Cancri E not only the richest celestial body ever identified, but potentially the greatest material asset in the history of any civilization, including those extraterrestrial civilizations we have yet to find. If 55 Cancri E is truly that rich, why can't we set foot on it? The reason is simple. It is a literal physical hellscape. The planet's surface temperature constantly ranges from 2,400 to 3,000 degrees Celsius, hot enough to vaporize nearly any material. It is tidally locked to its parent star, meaning it never experiences night. One side is forever scorched by blazing light, while the other is plunged into unimaginable extremes of heat in its own way. All metals would melt instantly upon touching the surface, where oceans of glowing molten carbon spread out like endless lakes of lava. The crushing pressure and overwhelming gravity would destroy any human-made machine, no matter how advanced, in an instant. Worse still, the distance between Earth and 55 Cancri is 40 light-years. With our current technology, traveling there would take hundreds of thousands of years, far beyond humanity's capabilities in the foreseeable future. The most fascinating aspect of 55 Cancri E does not lie in its seemingly endless wealth of diamond, but in the way it challenges everything humanity once believed about how planets form. Its very existence breaks the long-held assumption that rocky planets must resemble Earth, and it proves that the universe is filled with bizarre worlds far stranger than anything we have imagined. 55 Cancri E reveals that not every planet has sand, soil, or mountains. Not every world is built from silicates, and some planets may even use carbon as the fundamental building block of their entire structure. All of this leads to a deeper, far more provocative question that pushes human curiosity to its limits in this vast universe. How many other diamond worlds are silently hidden in the darkness, waiting to be discovered? One day, when humanity possesses spacecraft capable of traveling close to the speed of light, the extraction of resources beyond Earth will become a vital strategic necessity for our civilization. When that time comes, 55 Cancri E will stand as an infinite diamond mine, a place where raw cosmic materials are continuously exchanged between advanced civilizations, and the value of diamond will no longer lie in its rarity, but in its technological importance. Diamond is not only beautiful, it possesses extraordinary durability, extreme heat resistance, and exceptional thermal conductivity, making it an ideal material for future technologies such as superconductors, deep space, structural components, or high-energy optical systems. If humanity ever sets foot on 55 Cancri E, that moment would mark the beginning of an entirely new technological era, one that surpasses every limit imaginable to us today. 55 Cancri reminds us that the universe is far larger than our imagination. A planet twice the size of Earth, filled with diamond worth thousands of times the global GDP, makes one truth clear: humanity has seen only the smallest fraction of cosmic reality. Out there, in the endless void, a world so wealthy that our economic systems become meaningless. And 55 Cancri is merely a reminder that our journey of cosmic discovery has only just begun. In the universe, death is often seen as an absolute ending. But for galaxies, things are far more complex and unexpectedly dramatic. Some galaxies have gone dark, completely halting star formation for hundreds of millions of years, seemingly entering a state of permanent aging. Yet somehow, through mechanisms we still do not fully understand, they flare back to life, igniting with fresh generations of young stars. Astronomers call this phenomenon galactic rejuvenation. What do you think about galaxies being able to come back to life? Is this a natural cosmic cycle, or just a rare coincidence of perfect conditions? Share your thoughts in the comments below. A galaxy is considered dead when it no longer has enough cold gas to form new stars. This usually happens when the galaxy's supermassive core heats up or blows away the remaining gas, or when galactic collisions strip the gas and generate shock waves that prevent it from cooling. In addition, natural aging over billions of years gradually exhausts the raw material needed for star formation. Without cold gas, the galaxy cannot form molecular clouds, leading to a complete shutdown of star formation and causing it to fade and grow old over time. Such galaxies often appear redder, quieter, and more ancient, as if they have retired from the evolutionary processes of the universe. What astonishes scientists is that some galaxies suddenly restart star formation. The amount of newly formed young stars is far too great to be explained by leftover gas. This forces a central question: where did the fuel come from? Who refilled these galaxies? Many galaxies once labeled red and dead abruptly transform into blue galaxies, erupting with waves of young stars. Large surveys, such as the Sloan Digital Sky Survey and galaxies, have observed many massive spiral galaxies entering a second youth. The fuel that allows a dead galaxy to come back to life does not appear by chance. It arises from complex physical processes unfolding quietly in the depths of space. First, the universe is not an absolute void. It contains streams of cold hydrogen, drifting between galaxies like invisible rivers. If an aging galaxy happens to lie in the right position within the cosmic web, it can draw in this gas, much like a thirsty organism receiving water, and thus restart the process of star formation. Another more common mechanism is the collision or merger with small gas-rich dwarf galaxies. When a larger galaxy engulfs its tiny neighbor, all of the dwarf's cold gas falls toward the center, rapidly cools and collapses into molecular clouds, the cradles of young stars, reigniting a galaxy that once seemed extinguished. Finally, rejuvenation can originate within the galaxy itself. When an active galactic nucleus is blazing intensely, it heats surrounding gas to the point where star formation becomes impossible. But once this core shuts down, the previously overheated gas cools, quickly condenses, and triggers a fresh wave of star birth, as if a long-locked gate has suddenly opened, allowing fuel to rush in and awaken the galaxy from its prolonged slumber. The phenomenon of galactic rejuvenation is extraordinarily rare because very few galaxies possess the necessary conditions to come back to life after their fuel has been exhausted. Most of them fade away permanently, as the cold gas required for forming new stars has long been depleted or blown out into space. Only the exceptionally fortunate galaxies have the chance to draw in gas from the intergalactic medium, retain some remnant of cold gas that has not been destroyed, or collide at precisely the right moment with a small gas-rich companion. The strictness of these requirements means that rejuvenation occurs in only a minuscule fraction of the hundreds of billions of galaxies in the universe, likely only a few percent at most. And it is this sheer impossible rarity that has made the process one of the most intriguing mysteries in modern astronomy. One of the strangest galaxies ever recorded is NGC 262, a system classified as old and evolved, yet still surrounded by a striking blue ring of young stars along its outer edge. This unusual structure was almost certainly formed when the galaxy absorbed a large amount of gas from its surroundings or completely engulfed a gas-rich dwarf galaxy, allowing cold material to pour inward and give birth to clusters of newly formed stars. The juxtaposition of an ancient core with a vibrant youthful ring has led astronomers to give it a vivid nickname, the Frankenstein Galaxy. Interestingly, our Milky Way also has the potential to undergo a rejuvenation phase. Although it is still forming stars, the rate has gradually slowed over time, but has not stopped. In the near future, on a cosmic timescale, the Milky Way will collide with the gas-rich Magellanic Clouds, and then over the next few billion years, it will merge with the massive Andromeda Galaxy. When these events occur, an enormous influx of fresh gas will pour into our galaxy, setting the stage for a powerful second wave of star formation. In other words, the Milky Way is far from reaching a dead state. Instead, it may be on the path toward an energetic new era of rejuvenation. The phenomenon of galactic rejuvenation shows that galaxies are not static. They can fade away and then blaze back to life when conditions allow, proving that the death of a galaxy is not an absolute end, but merely the result of depleted fuel. From this perspective, the universe becomes a dynamic, ever-changing system in which matter is recycled, structures are renewed, and new generations of stars continually emerge. This realization compels scientists to rethink how they model galactic evolution, no longer as a simple linear path, but as a complex cycle that repeats phases of birth, decline, and rebirth.